Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to our class in law-related studies. But before proceeding, I hope that everybody is fine, you are in great shape and in good health, and you are safe from the virus of COVID-19. I just want to let you know that the main campus is being closed today because about three of our personnel, both faculty and staff, are found to be positive of COVID-19. That is why we just have to be very careful and be alert because we can get the virus anywhere. We just don't know who are those persons carrying with them the virus. As much as possible, do not get out of your houses and be always safe, wearing your face mask, and always observe physical distancing and, of course, the washing of the hands. Doing all these things will make us safe and free from the virus. Okay, so in our previous lesson, we were talking about one right of a student that shouldn't be taken for granted by anybody, even by your classmates or by your teacher or the school administrator, and that is the due process of law, the right to due process of law. So always remember, whenever you are already a teacher, to not forget the principle of the due process, that you cannot just impose penalty or punishment to your pupil or to your students without the due process of law or the due process, because that is an essential procedure that each of us will have to observe and follow before giving anybody punishment. Okay, so we should give any person, an accused individual, the chance to defend and to explain himself or herself before making a decision. Okay, so don't forget that. This morning, we are going to discuss another topic, and that is the right of the student to stay in school. So, all students who have been enrolled in a school have the right to stay. What do we mean, right to stay? This means that the student has the right to continue his studies in a particular school until he graduated or until he will graduate from his degree. When we talked about the different theories and principles about right, we have this contractual, the right of the student as contractual, meaning to say, as we have explained before, that once a student is admitted and paid his tuition or matriculation, there is already a contract between the school and the student. In this contract, the agreements that are contained are the following: that the school will provide the student with the needed instruction, and eventually, once the student has satisfied all the academic requirements, will grant him the degree that the student sought to obtain. On the other hand, on the part of the student, in that agreement, the student bind himself that he will abide with all the rules and regulations of the school and will comply with all the requirements set by the institution so that he will be allowed to continue with his studies in that particular institution. And in this agreement between the school and the student, there arises the right to stay of the student. So when we speak again about right to stay, it means that the student has all the rights to claim for that right to study and to continue his studies until he finish and graduate and obtain the degree that he enrolled and he aspires to obtain. So this is the right to stay. But such right can be forfeited anytime when the student will not be able to keep the terms contained in the agreement. So once the student will violate from all those rules and regulations and would not be able to comply with all the requirements, then that right to stay can be forfeited. But not in all cases that it is on the part of the student. There is also an instance wherein the right to stay of the student can be invalidated or can be without authority or power due to some circumstances experienced by the school. So today, let us talk about the 5 bases when a student will forfeit his right or her right to stay in a school. So there are 5 bases. The first is academic deficiency, meaning to say, if in case a student is not able to maintain the grade or the average that is expected of him or her to stay in a particular program, then that can be a basis that a student will have to give up his right to stay in the particular school or that particular program. So we know that in many colleges and universities, including the SLSU, we have this retention policy. Okay, so you understand what is the GPA or the average that you have to maintain so that you will be allowed to stay in the teacher education program. No? So the retention policy is one instrument or tool of the institution to make sure that only those students who are qualified and fit can continue with the program. So if in case your grade or the average of your grades in the major subjects will fall below the accepted average, then you are no longer allowed to continue in the teacher education program. In other schools, for example, in the College of Nursing, College of Engineering, or College of Law, these programs and institutions do have their own retention policy. And if in case a student is not able to maintain the GPA or the grade point average, then that student will no longer be allowed to continue with his or her study. Okay, so if you are failing your subjects, you have failing grades, so this is a reason that you could no longer continue with your studies in a particular program or in a particular school. No? So kinahanglan gajud maningkamot nga ang imong grado, ang imong academic performance is over and beyond the minimum, no? That ang imong grado dapat dili mo ubos sa 80 or 85 nga GPA, because kung muubos sa GPA ang imong or kung muubos sa 85 ang imong GPA, then that is a basis nga di nakapwedeng mo padadyon sa imong pag-eskwela, or there is a need for you to change program. So from teacher education, mo proceed na kakaroon og BSBA or other programs that are being offered in our institution. Claro? Okay, so that's the first. The second is the violation of the rules and regulations of the school. As we have learned in the previous points that were raised, kinahanglan nga ang estudyante mosunod sa tanang mga balaod nga giset sa eskwelahan, because if in case you violated the rules and regulations and the violation is to a certain degree that is already cannot be tolerated, unacceptable in the academic institution, so that will lead for your expulsion. You will be expelled from the school, or you are no longer allowed to re-enroll in this particular institutions. And there have been many cases decided by the Supreme Court pertaining to this. Okay, that if a student violates the rules and regulations of the school, and after due process it was found out that the student is indeed guilty as charged, then that is a reason that a student will forfeit his stay in that particular school. Okay? So kung ang usa ka estudyante nahimong sakit sa sa eskwelahan, kanunay lamang mo labag o mo violate sa mga rules and regulations, then mao nay rason nga papahawaon ang estudyante gikan sa usa ka eskwelahan. Ano, you have heard that in high school, no? Nay mga eskwelahan, nay mga estudyante that are no longer allowed to enroll in a particular school, mao nga mobalhin sa ubang mga eskwelahan. That is an example of the forfeiture of the right to stay. The third basis or ground that a student will forfeit his stay is communicable disease. Okay, so there are instances or there are cases that a student will develop a disease, a disease that will put or that will jeopardize or will put the lives of the rest of the members of the academic community at risk. No? Nasa jay sakit ka mananakod o nasa jay sakit nga makadaot po sa kinabuhi o sa health sa ubang mga estudyante o sa mga faculty sa eskwelahan. So, in this case, in this instance, a student will be advised to take a rest, to take a leave, and then recuperate. Magpaadyo sa siya. Until nga masakiton siya, dili siya pwede nga mutampo o dili siya pwede nga makihalubilo sa ubang mga estudyante. Take note that the disease must be communicable. Just like in our case today. Now, if in case a student is found to be positive of COVID-19, then that student should be immediately removed from the classroom or from the campus because he is placing the health and the lives of the rest of the members of the academic community at risk. No? So, if the disease is communicable or makatakod ang maong sakit, di pud basta-basta makatakod, sore eyes or piskat, dili pud na. Pero kanang mga sakit nga makadaot o makabutang sa peligro sa kinabuhi sa ubang mga estudyante, then this is a basis that a student will forfeit his or her stay in a particular school. The fourth is failure to pay the matriculation. Of course, in your case, this is no longer true because you are enjoying the free tuition that is being provided by the government. No? So it will now be the state or the government that is paying your tuition. But for private institutions, this is one important element that students cannot be allowed to enroll in a particular university or private college or university if in case that student fails to pay his financial obligation or the tuition fee or the matriculation. Okay? So, unable to pay the tuition and other matriculation is another ground for a student to forfeit his stay or to forfeit her right to stay in a particular school. And the last ground when a student can forfeit his or her stay in a school is the closure of the program. No? So for example, in our university, because of financial reason or other reason that are sound, we decide to close our program. And so those students who are studying in that particular program could no longer continue with their program. They will be instructed or they will be advised to transfer to other schools where the program or the academic or the curricular program is being offered. It happened in one of the institutions here in the region many years ago when that university decided to close, to close down. So only those graduating students were allowed to continue, but the rest of the students, they were advised to transfer and look for other schools to continue their studies. This means that they have forfeited their right to stay in the particular school because the school itself decided to close down. So these are the 5 grounds or reasons when a student will forfeit his or her right to stay in a school.